All right, folks, this is the backup video for exhibition proposals. So let's jump in and get started. I'm going to pull up things and share my screen, and away we go. All right. Awesome. Okay, so exhibition proposals. So one of the first things you're going to do for this class is actually write an exhibition proposal. And I ask you to do this for a few different reasons. First of all, as we've already talked about with goals, the process of writing helps to clarify. So when you sit down and put pen to paper or fingers to keyboards and start to explain how you're going to be installing your work, it gives clarity to you. Secondly, as you get clarity and you communicate that with me, then we can make sure you're super successful. It becomes a point for conversation back and forth about your needs. And we can start to think about the exhibition holistically. Now, this is a group show. We're going to work as an awesome team. And so that kind of thinking about needs of everyone comes into reading all of these exhibition proposals. And then lastly is about mimicking professional practices, or I could say practicing professional practices. This is something that as an exhibiting artist, you will be doing. You'll find a great opportunity at a nonprofit space, and guess what? They're going to ask you for an exhibition proposal. So what we're going to do, it's been on the screen for a while now, I apologize, is we're going to talk through the basics of what goes into an exhibition proposal, and then I'm going to show you 3 examples. And again, fret not, the Canvas module has almost all of this on it. Okay, so let's go through the basics of an exhibition proposal. And I should say this could be for later on for a group exhibition. It could be with multiple artists or just your own work. So the general components, always your contact information. So there's a rule I think you should always think about, and that's making it easy for people. So always making sure they know how and where to contact you. Okay, put that on there. Now, title. Okay, what's the title of the proposed exhibition? If you haven't come up with one, it's time to. Now, of course, we're doing that as a group, so your proposal does not have to have the exhibition title. We might not be there by the time you turn this in, but you could have the title if there is one of the series of work that you're wanting to exhibit. Okay, then from there, the process really goes into describing and explaining what you're wanting to exhibit and how you're going to exhibit it. Okay, so there should be a short description of the exhibition. Is there a general theme behind the work? If so, share that with the curatorial gallery staff, with me. Make sure you address what form does the art take. I mean, again, you want people to read this and really understand what you're doing. So make it very clear. Instead of saying paintings, you should be like, I'm showing oil paintings stretched on linen canvas, or digital paintings that will be outputted XYZ size. Okay, give a couple clear, specific examples. Okay. Then from there, you oftentimes, especially for nonprofit spaces, need to describe the exhibition objective. So what are you hoping to say or accomplish with this exhibition? How does the work interact with the theme in the contemporary world? Is there an emotional response you want from your viewers? We'll look at a couple of examples of this in a moment in the samples, but think about this. What is the objective? Okay. And then especially for this time through, what's going to be really important are the installation notes. Okay. So you need to give the gallery, I put on here a rough idea. I would say a very specific idea of the requirements for the installation of your work. So some things to think about. How will the work be displayed and what will be needed or will need to be provided? So a couple of things to think about for your exhibition. Two-dimensional work, prints, paintings, drawings. Will they be framed? If so, then describe the type of frames. Are they thin, sleek, contemporary frames, or thick, wooden, carved, embellished, art historical type frames? If the work is not framed, how will you be securing it on the wall? Will you be using earth magnets? Will you be using tape? Maybe not a good idea, but what are you going to use to get the work on the wall? Three-dimensional artwork. Where and how will it be displayed? Will it be on the floor? Is it on pedestals? If pedestals, what type of pedestals? Or will you be building shelves? Okay, if you are building shelves, how will those be placed within the wall? If it's an installation, how will you be constructing it, building it within the space, and what kind of needs do you have? So here's a really good example. If you are going to hang something from the ceiling, and this came up when we did the thesis exhibition at MBUS a while back, we need to know what is the weight of the object that would be suspended from the ceiling, because not all ceiling structures can support a 50-pound boulder. So if that is your goal, then you need to make that very clear. And for the intense reasons of this proposal, it's not about me coming back and saying, no, you can't do that. So please, let's be clear. But then it becomes a conversation. Okay, if you need to suspend a 50-pound boulder, what do we need to do? What materials, what supplies, where can we, so on and so forth. It's about a conversation. So that's why I'm asking you to be really specific. So for my people working in video and animation, some of the things you need to consider is how you will be presenting the work. Do you imagine it in monitors? And if it's a monitor, how big? Are you thinking like a typical, I don't know, TV, computer monitor? Or do you want the work to be on tiny little iPads? Or do you want to project it? And if you want to project it, how big is that projection? Is it 3 by 4 foot? Or are you thinking of pulling the projector way back and covering across a corner and 2 walls? Okay. If you're using sound, how will we experience it? Through speakers, through earphones? So really think these things through. What kind of viewing and engagement experience do you want the audience to have? Okay. So I think I covered most of this. Lighting can be an important part. And if you have a specific idea with lighting, make sure you explain that. For our proposal, I don't need a budget. If you want to create a budget just for your own planning to be like, you can do that, but I don't need a budget. Oftentimes galleries, however, will ask you for a budget. So just keep that in mind. And always, if there's any special instructions, make sure you communicate those. Typically, proposals are just a couple of pages long. I'll show you some examples of those. And as always, the writing should be clear and concise. Be direct and proofread, proofread, proofread. If you can get someone else to proofread it, that's often. If not, write it, put it on hold an hour or 2 or a day, and read it out loud. You'll be surprised at what you'll catch when you start to read something out loud. Okay, so other items that you're going to need to include: images of the work. Okay, and I should say, give the gallery exactly what they ask for. So if the gallery asks for 8 JPEGs at 72 DPI, 700 pixels on the largest side, give them 8 JPEGs at 72 DPI, 700 pixels on the longest side. If they ask for 1 PDF with everything, give them that. Okay, that's always the best practice. For this, I would prefer a PDF just to keep things very simple. Okay, if you include images, then you always need a corresponding image list that shares the information about the work. Oftentimes, galleries will go back and use this image list for the information that goes on the title cards or plates in the gallery. So at minimum, you need to include the title of the piece, the date in which it was made, the dimensions, width times height, and the medium or medias, okay? You can include, especially for those of you who have something very specific in mind for the layout of your work, a diagram or sketch. It won't always be required, but it's always helpful. So especially for this proposal, if you have something specific in mind for the ways you want to lay out your pieces, make sure you make some kind of sketch or diagram. I'm going to show you a couple of samples, and you can see it can be very low key in the way that you do it, drawing it by hand, or it could be high tech. It really doesn't matter. Do what suits your strengths. Okay. Artist statements are oftentimes required with exhibition proposals, as can be a cover letter, which is just a short letter that introduces yourself, usually has an element of thanks for the time the gallery is putting into reviewing your work. It lets them know what they will find in the packet. And this could also be a place where you, especially for university or nonprofit galleries, can include information on any type of programming that you would be interested in doing. Would you love to give an artist talk or a gallery tour? Or would you like to give a workshop about the technique that you've been working in or something related? You can include that in the cover letter. Okay. And then, of course, as we've been talking, your resume that explains your art experience and past exhibitions. Okay, so are we ready then to look at a few samples? Let's do it. So the first two are actually from former students. And I will say that both of these put together really nice proposals. And let me go here too. There is a little bit of change between the written proposal and the final outcome in the gallery, and that's okay. I don't pull these back up later. It's more about developing a vision and then a process of communication. Okay, so for this student's proposal, they started right off with the title of this body of work, Revision Revival Ritual. And then they went right in, and this I think is always smart when writing about your work. They're telling us directly and clearly from the beginning what they're doing. 78 Sumi ink drawings on sketchbook paper about 4 by 5 inches illustrate the full tarot deck using rabbit imagery. Okay, so we know immediately the size and the scope of this project, right? That is beautiful. Then they go on to give us details about why they used rabbits for their tarot deck in that first paragraph, and also talk a little bit about color, okay, and media. The second paragraph then gets into how they want to install the work. Okay, the work is not going to be framed. That would have not been a good decision here, I think, in terms of a student budget. To frame 78 pieces is a heck of a lot of money. So the drawings were placed on the wall with earth magnets, and the student took the time, they purchased little earth magnets and they spray painted them white. So they kind of disappeared into the work, okay? But the layout that they were interested in was that of a spiral with a beginning point, and they were thinking of it as a dynamic form that would relate to spreads of the tarot, okay? And then they went on to describe how in between those spirals, silhouettes of rabbits would also be put on the wall, okay? It was very clear what they wanted to do and what the project was. But then to make it a little bit more clear, they drew out, and they just did this, if I remember correctly, on the iPad. It's not perfect by any means. A little diagram to give a scale of what they were thinking, Okay, so the person and how these cards would flow onto the gallery wall. Okay, so again, in this case, there was a little bit of change, a deviation away from the spiral, but everything else stayed clear. And I and the gallery knew exactly what this student wanted to do. And I'll say that ultimately the tarot deck was reproduced and was sold. So a cool thing there. All right, so now let's go on, sorry, to the next student image. So sorry, I had the images first. Okay, so this one, the writing is a little bit longer, but it's fine because this student really wanted to explain a little bit more about their work. Okay, they were an art major and a psychology minor, and their work really focused on the human brain, as they were mesmerized about brain imaging and scientific breakthroughs that had been happening. Okay, so they set that up very nicely in the first paragraph. Then from there, they start to explain the work itself, discussing media and how the work would be displayed. So a series of paper cuts and prints to create a feeling of wonder and appreciation in the viewers upon seeing the colorful, delicate paper cuts paired with boldly colored prints. The paper cut enveloping around the print to invoke a feeling of looking within. Okay, and then a little bit more of detail about the importance of lighting here. As you saw from that image, and you'll see in the moment, lighting was important, a strong light source to help with color bounce and the shadow play within the work, as well as how much wall space they were thinking. Okay, so this student, and then their nice closure, did include quite a few images, and maybe a couple too many, but that's okay. Better too many than not enough. So as I go through, you can really see exactly what they were talking about. The brain scan cut out. We can see the cast shadows and why lighting is important to these pieces. And the side view where we can see how the earth magnets and nails are holding the work in, and that idea of being able to view within here. You could also see, I'll say on this one, to go back, we can see that bright fluorescent paint that's been applied to the back that makes the color bounce across the rest of the image. And I really love this one. So that idea of shadow and peeping in really comes through. Sorry. Okay, so it was nicely written. It was very clear. Again, maybe a few too many images since a lot of them are the same, but that's okay. We knew exactly what the student wanted. Now, back to the reasons you're writing an exhibition proposal, right? So that clarity of what you're going to be doing, always very good, right? But also that professional practice, practicing the professional practice. This student had a nice thesis exhibition. I think there were maybe 9 of these pieces, the print paper cut pieces in total. They were well lit. There was the nice color and shadow play that they wanted. Then they were able to use this proposal and make some tweaks, and ended up exhibiting these pieces at a medical school after their thesis exhibition closed. So do keep that in mind, that this is both about now, but also about what could happen in the future. Okay, so then I said I was going to show you one more. So those 2 are from students. Those are available on Canvas for you at any time. Okay, this one is not, because I just wanted to show this to you. The reason this one is not on Canvas is I don't want you feeling like this is what you have to do. Okay, this is a professional artist. I just thought it would be good to show what the next level might be, but this is not where you need to go. Okay, so this is David Ellingson kind of proposal packet. It's a nice PDF. This is kind of the title page with images of the work. Then David gives us on the second page an installation view. okay, with a little bit of information about the pieces. And then here's where we start in the kind of in the third and fourth pages, as we start to get to the meat and potatoes, if you will. The first 2 pages are visual. We can really see the work. Now he's starting to give us the proposal items. On the left-hand side, because the title of the piece is weather patterns, he's giving us that chronology of what's happening with weather trends, okay? On the right-hand side, he gives us just a very short, direct proposal where he explains that these images will be projected on all 4 walls of the gallery to create an immersive environment, that sound is part of the work, that will calm and disturb the viewer at the same time. And since it's important that the expectation is this will be due to offsets carbon neutral. He tells us what equipment and supplies he needs. And then there was a budget, okay? His last page gives us his artist statement for review. It's too big. Another image, as well as some links to see the entire project and how to contact him. So that one, again, I just wanted to show you so you can see what could be possible, how professional artists do it. But again, that there's not an expectation that you come up with something quite that, if you will, slick in presentations. The other 2 were obviously just done with Word or Pages, and that would be absolutely fine. So let's recap. I've talked quite a bit for this video. So you'll be writing your exhibition proposal to really clarify and share about the work you're wanting to show in the thesis exhibition. And then to take it a step further, the proposal will clarify how you are currently envisioning exhibiting that work. If it's 2D work, how it's going to be on the wall, framed or not framed, stretch canvas or raw edge canvas. If it's a sculpture, on a shelf, on a pedestal, on the floor, hanging from the ceiling. If hanging from the ceiling, how heavy? How are you going to do it? The same with the installation. How are you going to construct it? How will pieces or parts be placed on the gallery wall, from the ceiling, on the floor, etc.? Try to create as clear a vision as possible and tell us about all the possible things that you need. Are you going to need 4 outlets? Then let us know. The same with my video and animation people. How are you going to show the work? Are you going to project it? Will it be through a monitor? If a monitor, what size? If there's sound, how do you want us to engage with it? Okay, so we'll have time for questions and to talk through this a little bit more. And just remember, you have the Canvas module with that information on it for you as well. All right, take care.